Okay, welcome back. I'm excited for this one. We have Dan Van Zyl and ex-Springbok scrum half, correct?
Scrum half, although the body shape might look a little bit different now.
No, no, ex-scrum half and the director or the founder of Rugby Academy Ireland, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Very exciting development opportunity he's founded. But as you know, a die-hard South African fan, ex-Springbok, we are going to talk rugby's greatest rivalry. Got to get that name right. Bit of a mouthful. And everything around it. Really looking forward to it. Dan, welcome. Let's start with a big one. Prediction. What's it going to be? Four tests.
You're putting me on the spot straight away. I'd like to say 3-1 South Africa.
Do you know what? I thought you'd say that. I thought you'd say that. I sat on the fence. I went 2-all. But look, let's just go into rugby's greatest rivalry because we were having a little chat beforehand. And I think everyone understands it's a big rivalry. But how big and how important is this new concept?
Look, for me personally, I think it's great that the old tours come back. I know we're doing it this year with New Zealand visiting South Africa, and there was a little bit of negative publicity around the championship and the lack of playing more games against Australia and Argentina and the Northern Hemisphere. The Six Nations is obviously massive there, but the rivalry tour to play against the provincial sides, that creates its own sort of excitement, and the local provincial side players, they feel they have a shot at playing against the best team in the world.
Do they?
So that,
Do they have a shot?
well, yeah, no, you'll never know, but the Stormers and the Bulls and they'll definitely want to prove something and try and make it as difficult as they can for the Kiwis. But my personal experience started in 1981 when South Africa toured New Zealand in what's now known as the Flower Bomb tour, because of apartheid and so on back then. But I was a 9, 10-year-old, and I remember my dad waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't miss a game. We watched every provincial game, every test match, sitting with a coffee and a rusk, and watching and so on. So that's where it started for me, and probably where the excitement of wanting to be a Springbok came from, to try and experience that as well. And then it went on to obviously 92 or the 86 Cavalier Tour, and most of those players then won the World Cup for New Zealand in 87, which South Africa couldn't be part of. And then 92, when we got reinstated into international rugby, the famous All Blacks had their first serious win in South Africa under Sean Fitzpatrick. And then the 95, obviously, tour or World Cup has got its own glory days and so on. So the rivalry has just always been there between South Africa and New Zealand. So and this is just taking it back to probably childhood memories for me.
Interesting. So almost rather than a new thing, you're kind of saying it's an old thing that was there that's kind of been diluted a bit and now it's been formalized again.
Yes, that's how we would see it. Obviously, the newer generation, it will be a first time for them. But yeah, and that goes back to the early 1930s or so, where South Africa went by boat at those times and so on
Yeah.
to New Zealand and so on. But yeah, look, it's been massive, and I think the respect the two countries have for each other, in the different styles that they used to play, I think it's more similar now, thanks to Tony Brown.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I think that in itself is quite exciting as well.
I tell you what, that's brilliant. You mentioned the styles because that's been the debate on this channel with my viewers is we saw, and you can really help me on this, I think, in the Nations Championship, we've got loads of different names now, haven't we? New Zealand played 3 games with a similar team and played a similar sort of style, a classic New Zealand skill-based style.
Mm.
Um, do you think the two questions here? Do you think they're going to do that against South Africa, or do you think they're going to be a bit more pragmatic and think we could get stung doing that style, and they're going to do something different? And then with South Africa, we saw 3 different teams, a fourth different team against Argentina coming up, so no settled team. And a very good but basic game plan. Are we going to see that or something different? If you see what I mean.
Look, who knows? Rassi, he comes
I
up with
was
his
hoping you'd
own
know.
things like the 7-1 that he did just before the World Cup, the game at Twickenham and so on. So who knows what he's going to come up with. But yes, certainly out of a New Zealand point of view, I think under Rennie, it's quite clear that they're going to go back to old tradition, keep the ball alive, work a lot on support play, ball in the air time, quite a bit. For me, that
Do you think
French,
they're going to do with that first test? They're going to go boom straight in.
I think so. And I
Okay.
think, if they're going to take South Africa on with a traditional kicking game and so on, I think South Africa might have too much power for them. But again, I think and we'll probably talk about it, but I think Ruben Love is bringing a lot to the game. Not to say that Barrett and McKenzie and so on can't, but Cam Roygard, the halfbacks, I think is gonna play a major part in this series. I would still think that South African pack is more dominant than the New Zealand pack. But New Zealand counter-attack game, and back to their old values, I think can cause South Africa problems in defence.
So do you think South Africa are going to play quite a traditional game against New Zealand as well then?
I think South Africa
Okay.
definitely early doors. I think they'll go back to pretty much, old traditional South African way, but that will depend on the team Rassie picks. I think in his squad, he's got that ability. If he plays Sasha Feinberg, it will be more of a running threat. If he plays Andre Pollard, it will be more of a tactical, field position type of game. What he's going to do with Willemse. So yeah, there's so many different questions depending the backline that he plays. I think they can play quite a direct confrontational style, or they can play the new Tony Brown influence of also trying to attack the wider channels.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating battle, isn't it? And even if we just see the traditional New Zealand style against the traditional South Africa style, it's almost perfect anyway. And then all this second guessing, fantastic. We'll
I
we'll
think there's
jump.
going to be a
Go.
lot of I think there's going to be a lot of second guessing throughout the series, and South Africa would like to start obviously well with the last test being in the States. They don't want that to be the ultimate decider because it's neutral venue as well.
I'll tell you, you're segueing perfectly into everything here, Dan. It's not planned. So go on then, the fourth test and four tests. I mean, that was the big one when it was announced. It's why four? It seems very strange that you could set up this amazing rivalry tour that only happens every 4 years and it could be a draw. What's your thoughts?
Look, and that's again why it's tradition based, because the test used
Okay.
to be four
Oh,
tests.
really? It did it?
Yeah, 81 was
Ah,
was four tests, and if I remember correctly, but back in my memories, it used to be four test series rather than three test series. The Lions touring South Africa always was a
right.
four test series, and so on. And then in the 90s it changed to a three test series, but certainly it used to be four tests back in the 70s and 80s. So that would be my guess why it's
Okay.
why it's four tests to really make it the rivalry tour.
I mean, cynically, I was kind of thinking it was three tests in South Africa, and then it was an extra one for some extra money and kind of spreading the game a bit. But you think there's a
Look, I
bit
think
of
that could be part of it as well. But my thinking was four tests. That's what it used to be when they
okay.
still had the full tours.
I mean, it's bold, isn't it? But I mean, you can make the argument that if it is a draw, I mean, what tension would that carry through to the next season, the next series as well? Yeah, fascinating stuff. Okay, before we jump back to rugby's greatest rivalry, tell me about your company. You've been chatting to me about it in private. It sounds very interesting, but yeah, in your own words, what is it?
Yeah, look, thanks for the opportunity. It's rugby called Rugby Academy Ireland, and we're an independent academy in County Laois in the Leinster province of Ireland. And basically, we're a full-time academy, 8 months of the year. from the 1st of September to the 30th of April for school leavers, guys that's finished with school, so don't know what they want to go and do, but think they're good rugby players or have the aspirations to be a pro or semi-pro rugby player. And then we offer a full-time academy program for them that they'll probably get similar in the big provinces or the big clubs around Europe and so on. So it's a 9 to 5 program, including athletic development, which includes your gym, speed work, SAQ, speed, agility, quickness, recovery, all of that, and then rugby as the prime aspect, where we have a session per day, as well as either a skill session or an individual session. And then it's also, we do a rugby workshop or a video session every day with the players to try and improve their understanding. That might be, around defensive systems or attacking systems or coach's philosophy, and how do you fit in as a player in a certain coach's philosophy. So if you're a running fly off, why do you play for a team that's field position based, for instance, to just make it nice and simple. And they also do education. There will be an education module in it as well. And after the 8 months with us, they come out as personal trainers and strength and conditioning coaches, that they can work in 34 countries all over the world. So we do broadcasting course, we do public speaking, all different things that relate to the game, referees course, coaching courses, all of that will form part of our education. So it's a full 8 month of the year program, as I say, for people all over the world.
Yeah, and then you say they play for local clubs. You have links, so they get to play as well.
Yes, so that's probably where we're unique as an academy from other academies similar to ours in the world, is we're not a team that plays in a league. So we coach the player individually. So I always say, if I get 5 scrum halves, we coach them as scrum halves, or 5 hookers. We don't have to have a position, 15 different positions. And then we allocate them to clubs within Ireland at the level that we feel they can play, whether that's
Okay, that's
20,
interesting. So
whether that's
some players will be playing quite a lot higher than others then.
Yes, so it's under 20. Some kids come into us as 17-year-olds, so they play under 18 and a halves, as it's in Ireland. Then you have under 20, you've got Premier Division, Second Division, Third Division. So the one thing about Irish rugby is, in my experience, it's probably the best structured in world rugby. There's a level for everybody. And
Right. So it's not a
that
sudden
means
jump from under 18s,
no.
boom, seniors.
And that is the conversation then that I will have with a player. Look, I think you can play at this level, but at this level you'll play every week. And by playing every week, we get video footage of you every week. We can improve you as a player. We have those one-on-one discussions where you might go and play for this higher team, but you might sit on the bench the whole time and not get the playing experience that through the individual training, we want to get that into a game sense collectively as well.
Absolutely. And what was great, you were saying that, sure, it's for school leavers, maybe from Ireland, UK, but it's also an extra pathway for kind of those tier 2 nations that don't have that Irish structure. They can come to you, and kind of you're their academy they wouldn't have had in their nation.
Yes, like 2 years ago, just a recent example. 2 years ago, we had a hooker from Peru
Wow.
that came to us. I didn't even know they play rugby in Peru. And he joined us, and he's currently playing in the first division in Spain. And
Really?
his aim is to play World Cup, and we try to help him in a pathway. Peru is probably never going to play in the World Cup, but he can qualify for Chile or Spain.
Right.
So let's help him on his path. So he played under 20 club rugby in Ireland, and then from there we got him into the main division in Spain. And so Canada, the USA, Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, Switzerland, Belgium, we've had guys. We just had guys from Romania, um, also, Lithuania. So countries that you think, is probably not on the rugby radar. But the kid is the best. He's the captain of the national team. He's got the aspiration to play international or professional rugby, but he doesn't have anything to compare himself to. So he comes to our academy, we coach him, and he then gets into the Irish setup and realizes, gee, I might not be as good as what I thought I am, or I am as good as what I thought I will be. So it's a good reference point for potential or aspirational players as well, if where they sit in the pecking order.
Okay, fantastic. And I'm sure it's not a sponsored video, but I'm sure I'll put links down below to Rugby Academy Ireland, and we'll talk more about it in the future, I'm sure. Fascinating stuff, Dan. To
I
finish
think.
off then, let's go back to your favourite team, South Africa, I imagine. And
Not
we
not when they play not when they play Ireland. Then I
no,
then I feel too pressurized when they play Ireland in Dublin.
yeah, I don't think you can disguise yourself as Irish though, can you? So it's
No.
we were saying we don't know what Razzie's going to do. So what would you do? What's your start? What's your 23? You're starting 15, you're 23 to face New Zealand in that first test.
Yeah, look, I'm probably in a way I'll see myself, and people that know me in Ireland might agree. I'm probably the poor man's Rassie Erasmus, that I also like to play around with team selection and so on, because my belief will be that if you want to create a good environment, you need to give opportunity, where other coaches just pick the best teams the whole time, and then suddenly 4 years down the track, they fall short. So, but for me, the best South African team would probably be Ox and Malcolm Marx. With
Yeah, tight. Who's
have
the
your
starting tight head? Oh, that's a tricky
have
one.
your have your pick between Thomas du Toit and Wilco Louw and so on, but probably we'll go Thomas du Toit. I think how Rassie works it is he starts with a better ball player, and then he brings on the dominating
Well, I was going to
scrum.
say that it's crazy to think that actually Thomas Toy isn't your best scrummaging tight head.
Like everybody has played, but I think Lode Jager is also back. And I think Rassie might pick Lode to see, he's been injured for a long time, and can he play at that level? Because at the back of his mind, he's thinking next year, this time for World Cup and so on. So I think a few of the guys, Pollard, Lode, it's probably, can they still play at this level is what Rassie will want to test, and a year down the line, are they still going to be good enough?
Wow. So you think part of this is testing these old players to see if they've still got it for the World Cup?
I think so. If you think of
Okay.
his selections just around fly off, Pollard is a stalwart South African, and his record speaks for itself and so on. But Sasha Mani and then the two young under 20 fly offs are both there as well. Pollard, I think, still have a major thing to play. But, a year down the line, can he play at this level week in, week out? I think that's what Rassie will try and gauge through this season as well.
Wow.
Um,
So back
yeah,
row.
Kulisi is our captain, and brilliant captain at that. He's come under a bit of criticism now with Paul de Villiers' great performances, but Kulisi for me is still the six. Peter Steff and Jasper Wiese. And then I'll go Grant Williams,
I was
Sasha.
wondering what you'd go. You're a scrum half, so you're going Williams.
I'm going Williams, and then Sasha, Dialinda and Creel. And look, we've got a few wingers injured, but Mapimpi is also in the squad. I think he's another one for that same reason. Can he hold off the young troops coming through? But I'll go Colby and Ethan Hooker, and then Damian Willemse uh, at fullback. And then who knows? Esterhuizen, he's the hybrid player that whether
Wow.
you want to
Yeah.
go six
Supposedly
two or
so. He
7-1
turned
or
into one.
yeah. So the bench for me is always where the fun lies, but I think there's so much options. But Reinach for me will be the other nine, that can come on. He's got the experience to close a game out or to chase a game. Um, So, and then, he's got Lubbock, that's also been there on both sides, started big games, came off the bench to finish games off. I think that's Russie's biggest goal, or could be one of his biggest goals in this, is finding out, we know the famous bomb squad, but who is as good a finishers as what they are starters. Um,
Yeah,
and that might be a bit of a change in personnel.
fantastic. And I wonder, Dan, if South Africa win that first test, who'd say that Rassie wouldn't change the team for the second? I mean, that would be amazing if he made major changes for the second, even if they
Don't
won.
be surprised if he handles it exactly the same as what he handled the championship or whatever it's called that's just passed. I think we'll see 10 changes every test match,
Wow. Well, I wonder if come with the World Cup he'll finally settle on his team and play it a bit more steadily. I guess he
Yeah.
would. But
Look, but that's what he's developed. He's developed so much belief in the players getting there. I mean, Marnus van der Merwe, he played for the Scarlets, and nobody actually noticed him, if I can say that, in URC. And he's in this touring group. He's been in two alignment camps, played two test matches. Boan Venter, the Lucet, he's had great test matches, and so on. So he just seems to get the guys, and when they put the South African jersey on, they play really well. A surprise for me was Jean-Luc Depree, which Bordeaux let go, and he's in the Springbok side. So I think, as a coach, brilliant, but I think the mentality of, look, the Frenchies didn't want you, but you're a South African by heart. We want you, and go and prove yourself. And Rossi plays that card, I
yeah,
think, as well with players.
and like you say, they even if they haven't been in form in the domestic season, they seem to just raise it to another level for South Africa, which
And I think you have
shows
to,
everything.
because of what they created, and look, I was probably 10 years ago, I wasn't a great South African fan, or even 5, 6 years ago, but I think the style of rugby that they produce now, and I think Tony Brown, I think the assistant coaches that Rossi brought in, Tony Brown, Felix Jones, those guys had a massive part to play in making South Africa a more skillful and a more attacking threat side than what they probably used to be.
Yeah, because I did a couple of videos, one on New Zealand's attack, one on South Africa's attack. And even though the Springbok attack was more simple in its structure, the skill execution was outstanding which made those tries.
And it's probably just the mindset. I don't think Damian de Allende is a better player. Well, he's certainly a better player, but I think it was just the mindset. Again, 3 years, 4 years ago, everybody knew if de Allende is getting the ball, it's one way and going forward. And suddenly he's got a passing game, he's got a grubber game, so it's just so much more that they produce. They've got obviously Pollard that can control a game, and then they've got Sasha and Lubbock that can play a different style. So, and I think that makes good teams, is that the old saying is, they just had a plan A and plan A didn't work. What can happen? I think South Africa has got the personnel, and Rossi has got um, like he pulled Lubbock after 30 minutes in the World Cup semi-final, so I think he's got that as well, and the players understand that, and that something needs to be changed. Let's change it, rather than wait till the video session on the Tuesday, as what George Ford mentioned happened maybe with England too many times.
Yeah, no, it's easy to say, oh, South Africa have got better players and we just can't beat them. But I mean, you can think back not too long ago. I remember when South Africa toured under, I think it was Peter de Villiers, the coach, and they had Pieter-Steph du Toit playing, they had
Yeah.
de Allende playing, I think Pollard was probably playing, and they had shockers. They had absolute shockers, and you thought, these guys are terrible. And then those
Yeah.
same players, look what they can do and the longevity. So I think the coaching has to play a big part.
No, definitely. And not just Rassi. Rassi obviously gets all the kudos for it, but I think the how he goes and scouts coaches, that can have a positive influence uh, on the players. Even I forget his name now, but even the English analyst, that's now part of the Springbok setup. All of those guys, because he wants to get into the mind of how other teams thought about South Africa as well. And that's why I think it's going to change. As I said, I'm a massive Tony Brown fan, and I think he's going to take a lot of IP with him when he goes to New Zealand after the World Cup. So South Africa must enjoy this wave, and we as supporters must enjoy this wave, because as we know, international sport, your days get numbered very quickly. But looking at the under-20 setups and so on, I think there's a lot of talent coming through, and the coaching is so much aligned that I see positive times ahead as well.
Absolutely. And tell you what, let's finish on New Zealand, because I know it's obviously South Africa, your favourite subject and what I wanted to talk to you about most. But where do you see their big threats coming from? Because I've been pretty impressed by them already under Rennie, but they haven't come under the pressure that the Boks can bring. So where would you be worried as a Bok fan?
Look, I think, as I said, their backs, Geordie Barrett has gone to another level. I think when he played here in Europe, it was for everybody to see that if he's part of the game, he looks in a different class than classy players that's on it, and he did that with the Hurricanes this year as well, leading them. As I say, Ruben Love has always been a 10 that they really rated. But he was injured and so on. And then they probably have that same thing, Beauden Barrett, with all the experience that can come on to chase a game or to close a game and so on. So I think they've got a very good mix in their backs. Outside centre might be a position that they're still not sure about. They obviously tried Ione there, but what's it, Nupu, that played with Barrett, they seem to have been a good combination. So New Zealand, I think their tight five is always a little bit questionable.
Some young second rows there, aren't there?
Yeah, at the moment, front row with Cody Taylor and Lomas and De Groot there, I think, but they trying to find that second tier,
Yeah.
or that second team, just to be as good as the first team, which South Africa probably have at the moment. But the New Zealand back row, is as competitive as any back row out there. So I would say that's where I think they will play a looser game to try and get their back row and outside backs into play.
Yeah, I mean, Ardie Savea, I mean, they're older players, a bit like South Africa, are still at the highest level, which isn't always the case. I mean, Taylor seems to be phenomenal. Savea, Geordie Barrett, like you say, absolutely amazing. And that three playmaker system might be one of the edges, with obviously they got Love, but they don't always use him as the first receiver,
Yes.
Barrett, and then you have McKenzie swooping around late. It's a scary three, those ones. And
Yeah, and look, Cam Roygard, they were probably Aaron Smith for years, and rightly so. And then it takes a few years for other guys to try and get that same level. But Cam Roygard for me is a wonderful scrum half, whether his passing game, his kicking game, his defensive game. So I think, whatever style they want to play, they've got the players to do so as well, So back again, South Africa has probably been on top for the last 8 or 9 test matches, but as we know, that changes very quickly. And on one hand, I'll rather let us lose this tour and win the quarterfinal of the World Cup than win this tour and New Zealand turn us over next year in the quarterfinal or potential
that's true,
quarterfinal.
but you wouldn't want to lose 4-0, say. I mean, that would be
No, definitely not.
kind of
So
that.
look, I'm a short-term game person, so but it's going to be fascinating. I don't think we're going to see, big scores. I think it's going to be right down to the wire every test match.
Yeah, no, I think we're in a lucky position here where I think the series has come along just at the right time. We've got two teams who seem to be really ready to go at each other, and yeah, special times. Okay, thank you very much, Dan. I'm sure we'll try and chat again sometime about this series. And yeah, good luck with the academy.
No, Reach, thanks a lot, and thanks for the time, and hopefully, as I say, we just get positive rugby, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too. Okay, we'll catch you next time, guys.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye bye.
Okay, I'll just stop recording.